Hello, my name is Andrew Graff, and today I'm going to talk to you about emergency preparedness. In 2015, FEMA, which stands for Federal Emergency Management Agency, did a study and found that 60% of people have not and haven't even talked about preparing for a disaster. 39% responded and said yes, they had talked about disaster and what to do, and had talked with their family. Even though that the Washington Post released a study that stated that from 2007 to 2013, 80% of people in the United States have been in a county that has a weather-related disaster. Alright, so an emergency event can happen anywhere in the world. Preparing and talking with your family about one and having just a few essential safety items can keep you and your family safe until help arrives. Today I'm going to talk to you about some different types of emergencies, FEMA and government recommended items, historical examples of disasters. Alright, some emergencies as defined by FEMA, there are three different categories. The first is natural disasters, which include floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, landslides, volcanoes, extreme heat, extreme cold, debris flow, tsunamis, and wildfires. Some technological hazards include hazmat incidences, nuclear power plant emergencies, and chemical emergencies. And the last category is terrorism, which includes explosions, biological threats, chemical threats, nuclear threats, and radiological dispersion events. Also things to consider are seasonal emergencies. For example, here in Minnesota we experience all four seasons, so we have, our warm summers and our extremely cold winters. And also location. What I mean by location is here in Minnesota we don't have to worry about hurricanes and we don't have to worry about tsunamis. However, most Minnesotans like to go on vacation to Florida, where they could experience a hurricane, a tsunami, or if they chose to go to Hawaii, they'd experience a volcano right now. Alright, so some items that FEMA recommends to keep in your home is food and water for 3 days. Now, with water, they recommend at least 1 gallon per person per day. So if you have 4 people in the home, 4 gallons a day, that's 12 gallons for 3 days. Other items to consider with water is nursing mothers. They require more water than most. If somebody's sick, they also require more water. And if somebody gets hurt, they would require more water. When choosing food, choose foods your family would eat, foods they like. So you don't have to fight about your kids eating if you have kids. Also, they said include comfort foods. During emergency situations, they can be very stressful. Comfort foods keep them calm and keep you relaxed during these times. They also suggest a supply kit. In the supply kit, they recommend a first aid kit that has enough supplies for each person in the home. Most first aid kits have, like, hey, this is for 1 to 2 people, if it's 2 to 4. Make sure you have just the basic essentials for each person. Also in that kit, batteries, flashlights, local maps, a weather radio, and a can opener. And I say local maps, and you may think, oh, that doesn't make sense, I got my phone. During these emergencies, we may not have cellular service or Wi-Fi, which would distract, which would completely be unusable. So paper maps can be useful. Alright, so government response. The reason why they want 3 days of food and water in your home is because that is what they figured that their response would be due to a very catastrophic event. Get organized and get ready, because not all emergency events are like a hurricane where you can kind of figure out, here they come, let's prepare. But there's a caveat to that. Hurricane Katrina, they had roughly 5 days to get to the Superdome, where they had 30,000 people with nothing. So, be prepared. 3 days minimum is what they recommend. Next I'm going to talk about some historical examples of disasters. Recently, in the news, like I mentioned earlier, we had Hawaii. The volcanoes are happening right now. We got mass evacuations, many homes are being destroyed because of lava flow. Hawaii is a volcano and it's part of living there. In 2018, again, California, they had a severe drought in 2017, which was carried over into this year, which has led to, that's one of the things, is severe drought. And then they had a huge fire. This wildfire encompassed 280,000 acres, which devastated, everything. It's another thing. And then they got 5 inches of rain after all that, which created mudslides. Vegetation, which was burned off, usually holds the soil in place. So basically you just have mud getting rained on, slid down the mountain, creating these terrible mudslides. Earlier I mentioned Hurricane Katrina. That was 2005. That caused $125 billion in damage. The whole city was flooded, and some are saying that the city will never properly recover from that event. Some historical events that here happened in Minnesota. I don't know if you've heard of the 1940 Armistice Day blizzard, which was November 11th. Early that day they said there was 60-degree weather, they loved it, everyone was having a great time, and in less than 24 hours it dropped to single digits. Unfortunately, 49 people died that day, and a lot of them happened to be duck hunters. They were out hunting, and the weather was great, and the ducks were coming in because they were ahead of the storm, they didn't know what was happening, they don't have the alerts that we have today, and unfortunately many perished. Also, another local event was the flooding in Grand Forks and East Grand Forks. That caused $4 billion in damage, and 8 out of 10 homes were destroyed. And the funny thing about that one, compared to Hurricane Katrina, is there were 0 deaths. So if it's proper, we had proper warning or proper evacuation or proper government response maybe that led to all that, don't know. But it was a lot better for the people. All right, in conclusion, today I talked to you about the types of emergencies, government recommended items to keep, and then some historical examples. Most emergency situations are unknown and most people are unprepared. Be a part of the solution and be prepared.